What's up, guys? So in the last video, Zion Williams was able to guess the card background, which was Fraying Sanity. If you can guess the background for this video, we'll put you in the next one.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Jank Divers, where we dive into the janky side of Commander. I'm Isaac.
And I'm Brent, and today we're going to be taking a look at Deathtouch Monarch Tribal. So this was kind of a weird one, so we'll get into the commanders here real quick. First will be a new card, Falthis Shadowcat Familiar for 2 and a black. You get a Nightmare Cat, and it gives all your commanders Menace and Deathtouch.
Brent, I think all cats are nightmare cats. Yes, me.
Yeah, it seems very reasonable. And it's got Partner with Sidar Kondo of Jamuraa for 2 and a green and a white. You get a 2/5, and it's a human knight with flanking, which whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, and let's be real, no one's gonna have flanking. The blocking creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Doesn't really matter, but it's nice. Then the good part, creatures your opponents control without flying or reach can't block creatures with power 2 or less.
Now, something interesting about that sentence right there is even if your other opponents control those creatures, if they attack someone other than you, it's still treated basically as if those creatures had flying. So it makes your opponent's creatures harder to block for your other opponents as well. So not only does this help our plan, but it also helps other people's small creatures and tokens get the job done as well, and help you stay healthy by making it more tempting to attack other players.
Yeah, and gets the whole table's life totals lower, so this combat damage based deck will have a better chance of killing everyone.
Yes. So the general plan of the deck is we are going to try to create the Monarch and keep the Monarch to ourselves. So we do this by attacking with small, hard to block creatures,
and getting people not to attack us with our armada of Deathtouch creatures, which we'll get into here. So here we got some Deathtouch tribal payoffs. So first up is going to be Fynn the Fangbearer from Kaldheim, 1 and a green, 1/3 human warrior. It's got Deathtouch, and whenever a creature you control with Deathtouch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets that many poison counters.
2 poison counters.
2 poison counters, I can't read. So this gives us a nice alternate win con. It can be kind of hard to get 40 people, or not 40 people, 3 other people deal 40 damage to them. Yes, but this takes that number down to only 10 per player, which is really good.
Which is really useful when a lot of our Deathtouchers are 1 to 2 power. That's going to be a lot of attacks to try to get through. And since they're so hard to block because of our commander, cutting the damage in like literally just a fourth of the damage we have to deal can be very, very powerful and help us get there a lot faster.
Yeah. Then we got Hooded Blightfang for 2 and a black. It's a 1/4 snake. Whenever a creature you control with Deathtouch attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So, just a nice little combat damage bonus. Gives us a bit of life gain to help us stay alive. Then the second part, whenever a creature you control with Deathtouch deals damage to a planeswalker, you destroy that planeswalker. So it gives you planeswalker Deathtouch, which is just a randomly good thing to have. That tracks as super friends. You won't be able to stay online when you have your armada of people that kill his planeswalkers in 1 hit. Then Vraska Swarms Imminus for 2, and then 2 hybrid green-black. It's a 5 loyalty planeswalker. As a static ability, whenever a creature you control with Deathtouch deals damage to a player or planeswalker, you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So a bit of a nombo with our partner, but your creatures will get really big this way, and you can get in the first couple attacks for free with the other commanders, so it's still worth it, because again, a lot of our creatures are really small, so just having this to kind of get them a little bit bigger to close out the game is nice. And then you can do -2 to create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Deathtouch, and then the same Deathtouch for Planeswalker's ability as the Blight thing. So you'll be able to make 2 of these on this card because it has 5 loyalty. And they're pretty useful tokens to have, and with the commander, they'll be buffed up twice because they'll be unblockable. So they'll be 3/3s. Pretty good. And finally, we have Odric, Lunarch Marshal for 3 and a white. Is a 3/3 human soldier. And at the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature you control has first strike. And the same is true for flying, Deathtouch, most importantly, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So just you can share pretty much all of your keywords among your entire army, which again is just really helpful when our Shadowcat is giving our other commander menace. Now we can have our whole board have menace. So the 2 commanders like unblockable kind of abilities combined together gives you just a really hard board to block. So if anybody takes the Monarch from you, it should not be difficult at all to get it back.
That's right. And if you want to see the full list, it will be in the description. You can go ahead and take a look through. We have a lot of creatures with a lot of random keywords on them, so it's easy to just go through and look real quick to see what all keywords that Odric could possibly grant our entire board. Next up, we have some of our larger Deathtouch creatures. Vengeful Pharaoh is an old favorite of mine. I started playing around M12. This was one of the first rares that I actually got. It was right there on the face of the intro deck that my brother got. And it was just such a cool card. It's really nice to be able to have this in a deck where it actually makes sense. Yeah. So we have Deathtouch payoffs, so it having Deathtouch is really useful. It also, while it's sitting in our graveyard, it also sort of helps us with keeping the Monarch, because if somebody just attacks with just one, medium size or one large creature, and they hit your face with it, they're going to lose that creature. So it really begs the question where, it's really easy for us to take it back already, like we've already discussed. So is it worth it to trade that creature for 1 card, since we're pretty much going to be getting it back next turn anyway? And most of the time, it's not a fair trade to trade a 6/6 for 1 card. So pretty interesting cards. It's a pretty interesting card in this deck, and it's a pet card of ours, so we decided to let it in.
Yeah, one of my first decks was a zombie deck, and I was playing way too many of these in it, but it was fun. So
next up, we also have Grave Titan. It is a 6-mana 6/6 with Deathtouch. When Grave Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you put 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. So whereas Grave Titan is a 6/6 and is not receiving the ability that makes it hard to block from our commander, the zombies that it does put out does make it hard to block. Plus, it's extra bodies to help protect the Monarch. They're going to have to go really wide to get through. Going really tall doesn't really generally help out that much, just because of all our Deathtouchers. It's really annoying to have to lose your big 20/20, even if it does have trample. Now, you are going to take a hit taking a 20/20 trampler, but they're going to lose that. So again, it's like, do I really want to trade this for 1 card when he's just going to get the Monarch back next turn? Next up, it's not really a big creature, but it sure does put out a lot of stats. Hornet Queen is a 7-mana 2/2 with flying and Deathtouch. And when it enters the battlefield, you get to create 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and Deathtouch. So this gives us a lot of Deathtouch bodies. So all of our Deathtouch payoffs are going to be instantaneously good with, the presence of 5 flying Deathtouch creatures.
So next up, we're going to be getting into the Monarch portion of the deck. And the first part of that's going to be the 3 court cards. So Court of Bounty is a 2 and a double green enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you're the Monarch, instead, you may put a creature or land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So not only does this give us the Monarch for that cool card draw at the end of your turn, it also lets us put out lands even when we're not the Monarch, if that happens somehow. And when we are, we just get to play Grave Titans for free. You know, it's just really, really good. Then next up is Court of Ambition for 2 and double black enchantment. Again, you become the Monarch when you play it. And at the beginning of each upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If you're the Monarch, instead, each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. So again, we don't really mind them taking damage as we're kind of an aggro deck, so the lower people's health get is going to be better for us. And if they discard cards, that's still really good too, because like we're drawing a card and each of our opponents discard a card. That's a lot of card advantage. And when we're the Monarch, this thing is just brutal. Like 2 cards is a lot.
Yeah, you're going to have a massive card advantage difference here. When you're drawing 2 cards a turn and your opponent is having to discard 2 cards on your turn, that's each opponent. You're not even having to choose one player to discard 2 cards. Each opponent is having to discard 2 cards. So you're drawing 2 cards, they're discarding 2 cards. So the more turns this sits out there, the more likely you are to just win the game.
Yeah, exactly. And then next up, we got Court of Grace for 2 and double white. You become the Monarch, obviously. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And then if you're the Monarch, instead you get a 4/4 flying white angel. Again, just really big flying bodies, or even if you're not the Monarch, still just like free creatures is not bad. We want to be the Monarch anyway, so I mean, it's just a generally good card.
Yeah, and again, the more flying creatures you have, the easier it is to take the Monarch, and then you're creating 4/4s, which 4/4 angels. If any of you have played a mono white deck before, it's pretty much the only way mono white can win is with 4/4 white angel tokens. So you know how fast that they are able to close out the game if you have played mono white before. So it works just the same in 3-color decks, let me tell you. Next up, we don't usually play a lot of tutors, but the tutors that were available for this deck were just really, really sweet cards. So we did include some tutors in this deck. And I'm not going to try to pronounce that name, but the old Beast Tracker.
It'd be Moanvi or something.
I don't know. I don't speak stupid. Beast Tracker for 3 mana is a 2/1 human scout. And when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with Deathtouch, Hexproof, Reach, or Trample, reveal it, and then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. So again, this is going to be able to fetch a lot of our best cards. So it can find us a big old Monarch payoff. It can find us any of our Deathtouch cards, which, as if you look through the list real quick, you'll notice that a lot of our really, really powerful cards do in fact have Deathtouch. And we do have, a really good trample creature to go and find. You have a lot of really good options with this card. Vargoth, the Bloodsky Sire, for 3 mana is a 2/3 with Deathtouch, so it can be tutored for Beast Tracker. And it is a 2/3 with Boast. So you can only activate Boast if this creature attacked this turn, and only once each turn. Usually this is made to have a more powerful ability, but with a risk. So you have to attack with it. So you're putting this creature at risk where somebody could block it and kill it, but it does have power too. So your commander makes this a lot harder to block. basically giving it flying. So it's a lot safer to attack with. And we pay 2 mana. Target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. So this can we can search this up with Beast Tracker, or once we find this, we can just start searching our library for the next card that we need. So it's just a repeatable search that is, if left alive for a couple turns, is certainly going to lead to your victory. And Primal Command is an all-around great card. It has so many useful options that our deck was missing. So 5 mana is a sorcery, and you get to choose 2. So not 1, but you get to choose 2. Target player gains 7 life, so just a little bit of life gain. Or put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library. So a little bit of temporary spot removal, not bad at all. And you can also use this to blink an enchantment or something if you're really in a pinch and need to get Monarch back without the use of creatures. You can blink back one of your courts back on top of your own deck. Obviously this isn't ideal, but this is an option. Or target player shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library. This can be used as graveyard recursion, which is useful sometimes. You know, if somebody's milling you or something, or you're just getting really low, if the game's dragging on. This isn't gonna be an option that you choose a lot on yourself. It can be used as graveyard removal if somebody is playing some sort of self-mill deck or reanimate deck and they have a graveyard full of threats. You can just shuffle it right back into their library and they have to start off from square one. So that is a little bit more useful for us since we were a little bit lacking on the graveyard removal. We also have Bajuka Bog as graveyard removal just because it only takes up a land slot and only slows us down a little bit. And the last option, of course, is search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Again, we have so many great options. Vargoth lets us keep recurring tutors, so we can just find whatever we want. And, you know, we get to find Monarch cards, great Deathtouch cards, or some of our big old win conditions.
Alright, so next up, we just got some cards that work really well with Deathtouch, even though they're not, like, explicitly Deathtouch tribal. So the first up will be Ulvenwald Tracker. For 1 green, is a 1/1 human shaman, and then for 1 and a green, you can tap him, and target creature you control fights another target creature. So again, when you have a Deathtouch creature, this is just a repeatable removal spell. A lot of the times you will lose the creature you send in, but not always, as we see on the slide here. So for the next card is Rhonas the Indomitable. For 2 and a green, a 5/5 god with Deathtouch and Indestructible. So, you know, Deathtouch tutor-upable by the
Beast Tracker.
Yeah, also Indestructible for Odric as well, so you can give your whole team Indestructible and be able to tutor it. And it can attack unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. And then for 2 and a green, another target creature gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn, and he is a 5/5. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with this card. First of all, being, you know, Indestructible works really well with Ulvenwald Tracker, as you can just make him fight and kill anything and he won't die. Trample ability. Trample has a really interesting interaction with Deathtouch, where say you have your Rhonas and you make him a 7/5 with trample and attack, right? And they block with like an 8/8. You can deal 1 point of your damage, like assign 1 of your damage to the blocker. This will kill it, and you can take the rest of your damage and trample it over into their life total. So it makes, like, blocking a Deathtouch creature with trample is just almost a futile effort, so it really helps us get the Monarch back. Makes our creatures just deal a ton of damage. It's like they can only block 1 damage per creature or whatever, so really good. And on top of that, his pump up ability, you can do that after blockers have been assigned. So with our commander letting power 2 or less people go unblocked most of the time, you could like attack, they can't block your small dudes, and then you use Rhonas to make them bigger after blockers are declared to get in more damage. So just a really powerful card in this deck.
Yeah, this can be helpful if you're trying to go for commander damage. Our commanders can just attack, be really hard to block, and then you pump them up after they declare no blockers for it, and this gets you a lot closer to commander damage, because honestly 3 mana for basically shock normally isn't that great unless you just have a lot of extra mana to work with. But you know, when you are only trying to get to 21 instead of 40, it's a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. And then Triumph of the Hordes for 2 and double green, a sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and get trample and infect. So again, kind of a more popular card, but we just kind of had to include it here as the interaction with trample is just really good, because again, like, you deal 1 damage and trample over the rest with infect. Like you could probably kill, like, this card already lets people wipe out multiple players at once, but like in here it's just even easier because they can't even really block it most of the time.
Next up, we have some of the big bad Monarch cards. Regal Behemoth for 6 mana is a 5/5 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. When you tap a land for mana while you are the Monarch, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is letting your lands tap for 2 mana, which is obviously quite a strong ability. Especially when it comes with, you get to draw a card at the end of your turn. So this is everything we want. It's ramp and card draw and a big 5/5 trampler. Protector of the Crown is a 6 mana 2/5. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. All damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to Protector of the Crown instead. This makes it really hard for your opponents to take the Monarch. So if they would deal damage to you, they're going to deal damage to Protector of the Crown instead, so they have to kill Protector of the Crown before they are able to get that combat damage dealt to you directly and take the Monarch from you. So this is a great card to protect the Monarch, and it makes sure you have the Monarch when he's out as well. Archon of Coronation is a 6 mana 5/5 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. As long as you're the Monarch, damage doesn't cause you to lose life. In case you were wondering, this does not prevent the Monarch from being taken from you at all. Damage is still dealt to you, it just doesn't cause you to lose life. So they will deal 0 damage to you and take the Monarch from you if they get a creature through. But that is obviously pretty good, especially when somebody's going tall and they're swinging with a 20/20 trampler. You block with a Deathtouch, take 0 damage. They lose the 20/20, and you're able to just take it back, take the Monarch back the next turn, hopefully. So it's still definitely worth playing, especially if somebody's running non-combat damage cards. If somebody tries to fireball you, that's not going to cause you to lose life as long as you're the Monarch and Archon is out there. So they will have to kill this before they deal any non-combat damage, however rare that is. Dawnglade Regent is 7 mana 8/8. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. And as long as you're the Monarch, permanents you control have hexproof. This is going to make your board very hard to remove, impossible to remove with spot removal. So this is going to, once again, just help you retain the Monarch, as they can't just remove the blockers that are preventing them from attacking you.
Yeah, so here we have some effects that help us when we deal combat damage to a player. And that's going to be really easy because A, we have Deathtouch creatures that people don't want to block, and B, our commanders. So first up is going to be Keen Sense for 1 green and Aura. And whenever the enchanted creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. So we're going to be drawing a lot of cards off this because, again, not easily blocked if you drop it on either of our commanders, as they'll have Menace as well. So just very difficult to stop from getting through. Then next up, Oron Frostfang for 3 and double green. So snake, a snow creature, but we don't care about that. And it's a 2/6, and it gives all attacking creatures you control Deathtouch. So just, really obviously good because we're a Deathtouch deck. And then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Draw a ton of cards this way is, again, really hard to block, especially like, Hornet Queen, that's like 5 cards if you attack with all the bugs, etc. Next up is one with Nature, just a really cool card. And it's 1 green for an Aura. And whenever the enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a basic land card and put that card into play tapped, then shuffle your library. So if the creature you attach this to doesn't get removed, you're gonna probably ramp like 4, 5, 6 times even. Like, just, you can get a lot of value off of a card that only costs 1 green. And then finally, Quidus Spike, however you say that. It's 3 colorless for an equipment. It gives the equipped creature Deathtouch, and whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half of his or her life rounded up, with an equip for 3. So, just chunking people is just really hard to stop from happening if you put it on Sidar Kondo. Just a really good win condition for us.
We didn't want to go too ham on Fogs, but we did notice the particular powerful synergy with Fog and Monarch. If they can't take the Monarch from you, you don't need to take it back. This is especially important because all of our court cards activate on our upkeep, whereas you just have to take it on your turn if you want to draw the extra card. You have to have it by the start of your turn if you want the extra court bonus. So having some extra cards to protect our Monarch status was nice. However, we didn't want to go too ham on it, so we just included the 3 best ones. Constant Mists for 2 mana is an instant with buyback, sacrifice a land. So you get to sacrifice a land in addition to the other costs when you play the spell. If you do, you get to put this spell back into your hand instead of your graveyard. And then creatures deal no combat damage this turn, meaning they cannot take the Monarch from you this turn. Arachnogenesis for 3 mana, you get to put X 1/2 green spider tokens with reach onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. So not only does this let us block some creatures, but this also gives us a great fog effect and gives us blockers for another time and protect the Monarch status. Obscuring Haze is, of course, the green one from the cycle of cards that are free to cast if you have your commander. So for 3 mana is an instant, is free if you control your commander, or either one of your commanders if you have partner, and prevent all damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures your opponents control. So this lets you still block with your Deathtouch creatures and kill their creatures while protecting your own, and protecting the Monarch status.
So next up, we just have some cards that are just pretty good with our strategy, but they were just kind of random one-offs. So first up will be True Conviction for 3 and triple white, an enchantment that gives all creatures you control double strike and lifelink. So lifelink just helps us win out if we're trying to race another combat damage deck or whatever. And then double strike is the main reason, because again, with the first strike, or double strike in this case, and Deathtouch, really powerful combo, you win any combat against a non-indestructible creature. Really good with trample too, is you just get to let all that extra damage go over, especially with double strike. Then next up, Garruk Apex Predator. For 5 and a green and a black, he's a 5 loyalty planeswalker. For a +1, you destroy another target planeswalker. Won't come up all the time, but when it does, it's really powerful. Then another +1. Put a 3/3 black beast creature token with Deathtouch onto the battlefield. So just making us more Deathtouch bodies to gain and protect the Monarch with. Really good. Then -3, destroy target creature. You lose life. You gain life. Sorry, equal to its toughness. So again, just a repeatable removal. Helps us stay alive in those extended games. And then -8, target opponent gets an emblem with whenever a creature attacks you, it gets +5/+5 and gains trample until end of turn. Again, this is just a death sentence for whoever we put this on. Like, they're just not going to be able to stop it. And then finally, Ghostly Prison for 2 and a white. It's an enchantment, and creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 colorless for each creature they control that's attacking you. So this just helps us protect the Monarch against those token decks. We got everything locked down against like a big creature deck because we have so many Death Touchers, but against a token deck we could get overwhelmed and lose it, so this helps us control it in those types of games.
And that is it for Deathtouch Monarch. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell notification to see more decks in the future. We would love to hear your feedback on what you thought of the deck. So again, please put in the comments what you think of the deck.
Yeah, if there's any cards you would add, feel free to tell us and we'll take a look.
Absolutely. Once again, if you think you know the card art in the background, if you comment that, we will feature you in the next video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.